Apple recently announced the all-new iPod 7th generation. Well, maybe not all new. In fact, the only new thing about the iPod is the processor. Same color options, same camera, and same design. This is William from Wink Tech, and I'm going to tell you why the iPod doesn't make sense in 2019. Just a quick disclaimer, I don't have an iPod 7th generation or 6th generation, so for the purpose of this video I'll be using my iPod 5th generation and looking at the iPod as a whole in 2019. The iPod started out as the go-to device for listening to your music. 100 songs in your pocket. And that's exactly what it was, and it was amazing. The iPod slowly evolved into this portable device that sort of revolutionized the way people listen to music, how they managed their music library, and was a big part of pop culture as well. With things like the famous silhouette advertisements, collaborations with some of the biggest names in music, and a cool design, the iPod caught on really well with the younger demographic. However, things quickly changed with the release of the iPhone. When the iPhone came out, it was, as Steve Jobs said, an internet communicator, an iPod with touch controls, and a phone all wrapped up into one device. Since the iPhone is basically an iPod with a phone function, Apple had to change the iPod in a way that it wouldn't take away from iPhone sales, but at the same time still had a market for it. Apple later released the iPod Touch, which was essentially a stripped-down iPhone with a music focus. Of course, Apple released more generations of the iPod Touch, but was formed into an entry-level mobile device for kids. You can see this was Apple's approach since they shifted from music on the iPod to features such as a high-res screen, a camera, and the ability to play games and fun color options. This brings us to 2019, where good phones are getting cheaper and the iPod is becoming obsolete, which begs the question, why did Apple release a new iPod in a year where most kids have phones by the age of 12? Let's start with what the iPod's competitors are. One of the main competitors to the iPod would actually be low-end phones or old iPhones. Most low-end or older phones are fast enough that kids can do whatever they want, and without a SIM card they can't make calls or texts. Phones often offer comparable or better specs than the iPod and a lot more functionality. Another big competitor to the iPod would actually be small tablets or iPad minis. The reason why tablets would be considered a competitor to the iPod is because it still has some of that portability on top of a cheaper price range. The advantage to a tablet over a smaller device such as the iPod would be the power depending on the model and the bigger screen, which is better for playing games and watching videos, which is what kids would be doing on their iPod anyway. An argument could also be made that the iPod is a good entry-level device for the soon-to-be released iOS 13. This is true because the iPod is sporting Apple's A10 Fusion chip from the iPhone 7, which is powerful enough to handle at least the next few iOS updates. This of course is important for having access to the latest apps and features, however the rest of the specs such as the camera, screen, and overall design are a bit outdated. So should you buy the new iPod? Well, if you have an iPhone then obviously no. Even if you wanted a device just for music, I would recommend an old iPhone or even just the Apple Watch, which can stream and store music from Apple Music. As for kids, I think that it is still a good non-cellular device for them to enjoy, but could still get a lot more out of something like a tablet or a previous model of iPhone. Well, that's about it for this video. Do you own an iPod or do you think it's time for it to go? Let me know in the comments below what you think, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more videos like this one, as it would be much appreciated. Anyway, this has been William from Wink Tech, and I will see you in the next video.